Live from the apocalypse. Wake up, Muttnik, you're dreaming again. This is State of the Game. I am Dano, commonly referred to as the Jerry Buss of Free Music Empire. And I'm joined, as I am every week, by my Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? We're talking about someone who stabbed a stranger in the neck for making fun of the song Beach Chair. K. Diggy, thank you for being here, being a defender of the arts. Are you muted, sir? Are you muted, or what's going on?
It's called Silent but Deadly.
Silent but Deadly.
Yeah.
And turn up the volume on that. See,
all right,
good deal. So, and we are joined here. We're talking about someone who cut the Black Album down to 10 songs, but voted to keep Justify My Thug.
Woo.
Yep.
Bring the smoke. Bring the smoke. I'm ready for it.
The Iron Will of Sean Kantrowitz. We're talking about someone with like the consummate host, an iron library of knowledge, research. What a truly someone I've wanted on the show for a while. I was just waiting for the right time. Right time.
Well, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. And it's ready to talk about. It seems like my brain is so wired to just associate Zoom with talking about rap minutia now. Like I know that Zoom probably means a lot of things to a lot of people over the past 2 years, but when I see that background, when I load up that app, I'm like, I'm most likely about to talk about some hip hop shit. So let's get into that.
It's real. I've been on some family Zooms, and it is an adjustment. Like I have to sit in the background and let other people talk and stuff. I'm just like, oh no, we're not covering the new release. So.
You're more into the rock La Familia than rocking with the family, is what you're saying.
Yes. Yep. Changed the game. So I would say, Kantrowitz has been unbelievable. If anybody hasn't seen the questions, hip hop trivia, you are next on my list, either 1A or 1B for the next Patreon I'm going to subscribe to. It's you and Mike Eagle. You're next from the. I'm subscribing to everybody. I don't.
Well, I appreciate that support. And for anybody who does want to join, you can go to patreon.com/thequestionshiphop. Lots of bonus content that I offer over there, things that don't make it into the episodes, more sort of like in-depth discussions with people, early access, all that good stuff. So I appreciate your pledge, if you will, your commitment, and we'll be welcoming you with open arms when you come.
Yep, when the money's right. So I was like, it's great. And I remember the Kantrowitz. I was introduced to Kantrowitz with this beautiful call out culture episode about Common. And Sean thought he was going to celebrate Common, and we've been on call out culture. We know how it gets.
I should have known. I don't know what I was thinking. I just sort of, because I've listened to Call Out Culture before too. I know generally how they roll, but I thought, okay, this is like, if they're going to dedicate an episode to this man, they're probably going to equally sing his praises as well as be critical. And man, I came in there, I thought I was beaming into, more of a civil discussion. I beamed into a fist fight. I was getting jabbed. That's right.
I think Call Out Culture is my favorite because it reminds me of being in the neighborhood, it reminds me of these yelling fights we had about albums that people were never going to meet, and it's great. And I've lived up to that. Shout out to you for maintaining your personal level of professionalism throughout. But you also, Sean Kantrowitz is a booking god. If you pull up the questions and see the guests he's had, he's interviewed Del the Funky Homo Sapien. He's interviewed incredible people, and it's been awesome. So how has there ever been the format? Let's see the format. You ask questions, you research the questions, but you let it breathe in between the questions. There's natural conversation between the questions. Has there been natural conversation between the questions where you just learn something about an artist you did not even think you would know before, that sticks in your brain you'll never forget?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that for the most part, that happens in every episode. I'm really into very, casual conversations when it comes to interviews, and that's how I treat most interviews. It's funny that because through the questions format itself, I do have to actually write and prepare questions because it's a literal trivia question game. But for the most part, my interview steez is very much, I don't write questions down. I sort of have like an outline of what I want to ask and know about, but I'm really much more interested in having sort of an off the cuff sort of exchange. But when it comes to like any tidbits that stand out, I mean, you mentioned like the Dell one. I didn't know that Dell had such a background in graphic design. I sort of knew that he was about that, but to learn that he designed the Hyro logo and that he, studied like design and was even actually planning to do that before the music took off, that was really cool. Another one that like sticks out in my head is we had J-Ro from the Alcoholics, and he revealed that he was not drunk when he recorded the song Only When I'm Drunk. And then, then all of like the burping and like sort of the drunk mannerisms that he had was completely acted. So I thought that was really cool. There are probably countless others. I've had over 100 guests on the show. It's kind of hard for me to catalog, but I'm delighted to learn about these stories and kind of get things out of these artists to give them a platform to talk about things that maybe they haven't talked about before as well.
That's awesome. No, it's I'm excited about it. I think and Kay, then he brought in, so the questions is enough. The questions is fabulous. And then Midas the Beast comes to you with an idea. How did that come about? What was the idea? Talk to us about the genesis.
Yeah, so I mean, Midas is one of my best friends. That's like my brother. We've known each other for many, many years. And so he had this idea called Making Illmatic that he had done on his Twitch a little bit. I think he'd done it maybe once or twice, where he had this idea about a show concept where basically Making Illmatic being taking an album that is good, but perhaps is a little long, and trying to trim it down to 10 tracks a la Nas's Illmatic, and seeing if trimming it to 10 tracks improves or hurts the album overall. And he had told me about it, and I said, that is a great idea. I love it. That's like one of those that I wish that I had thought of. And I basically just said to him, like, yo, if you want to find a home for this, if you want to do it in the world of the questions, I'd be more than happy. I told him, like, you can just do it and I'll put it up on the questions because I just think it's great. And then he and I sort of started brainstorming about it more, and I got a little bit more hands-on and sort of producing it and putting it together. So yeah, basically the concept is every time that we do it, on the Questions podcast, it's a Making Illmatic episode. It's Midas, myself, and a third special guest picking an album and seeing if we can trim it down to 10 songs. And if doing so helps the album or hurts the album. And we've done, albums like Big Pun's Capital Punishment, Jay-Z's The Black Album, Wu-Tang Forever, which was a Herculean task because that's such a long fucking album. We did LP's Fantastic Damage. And it's really been cool to, we've gotten a lot of good responses because it's something that definitely perks people's interest and also gets under their skin when they're like, oh, I can't believe you cut this song, or why would you keep that song? So, it's kind of an extension of, all of the casual hip hop conversations that, we've had, and putting it in front of a microphone and recording it.
I was so mad when I heard about it, Kay. I was like, I should be on every episode of this. I was like, good. And I think my response was, call me when you do See Murder, Life or Death. Like, that's like 26 songs. That would be that's a real session, cutting that one.
Yeah, we'll have you on. We'll have to have you guys on eventually.
But yeah, so it's did you check any of it out, Kay? Did you get a chance?
No, I didn't get a chance to, but I like the concept.
No, it's great. And So what people don't understand, it's a nifty idea, but the show in practicality is combat. It is war. Like it really does become a war of these different opinions. What was the biggest like the hullabaloo? Like what was when you were like, this is getting wild, like this is awesome?
I think doing we had some funny moments like doing Redman's Muddy Waters with our friend Zarism.
Yeah.
And you know, we definitely were getting at each other's necks over some things. I thought that it was I don't want to spoil anything because I think part of the fun if you're listening to the episodes is just sort of uncovering it. But there were definitely some songs where I was like, I cannot believe I'm getting outvoted on this. I cannot believe that you are keeping this track on here. And that's usually the formula and component of what makes a great episode. And we sort of have that on every episode that we've done. So, you know, it's you get people who feel really passionate about this stuff, and there's bound to be some feelings that sort of swell over things that get overlooked or things that make the cut, you know.
And the entire wrecking crew on the LP one, that was, I'm so happy, proud of you that everyone survived that. That was like a lot happening.
Right. Well, I told them beforehand, I was like, hey, listen, I've listened to Call Out Culture. I know how y'all get down. Like, you need to uniformly come to a conclusion on the Wrecking Crew side of things before we do the Zoom. Because what I'm not going to have is, you know, 6 of us just screaming at each other for 2 hours. Like, you know, much respect to the screaming format that some podcasts have, but I like to keep things a little bit more contained. So I was like, let's get our ducks in a row, at least on the Wrecking Crew side, and then we'll divvy it up. Yeah.
Love it. No, that's awesome. And it's great. And I think people should definitely check it out. We brought you here. You are very funny, very honest, very knowledgeable, and very above board. I wanted someone very above board for this. We didn't want to take shots, right? This is Jay-Z Misconceptions, right? The breakdown this week kind of explains it, that Jay-Z's mythology has been steeped, Jay-Z's career has been steeped in mythology, right? I was thinking about the other day, I was like, Imaginary Player was on his second album. Like, Imaginary Player, where he's like embarrassing someone in traffic about how good his car is. That's like right after his debut. Like he was just filthy rich right off the bat and like mythic right off the bat, you know? And that caused, now he's also had this incredibly long career, right? Which means there's all these different generations of Jay-Z fans who perceive him entirely different.
Yeah.
He's probably had the longest hip hop career, maybe Snoop, but Snoop, I would say I'm not going to say his music isn't relevant, but not in the same way as Jay-Z's music has been consistently relevant for the past couple of years. Like he's had the longest career in hip hop.
I was thinking LL maybe. LL's definitely in there, right? He starts when he's 16 and like 85, 86, something like that.
Okay.
So,
Nas predates
Jay.
And I would say Nas still is relevant in a way that, like to your point, that like Snoop is still a figure, but like quick, gun to your head, name the last 3 Snoop albums. Like
right. You know,
Right.
You can't do it. Jay-Z, I think, is sort of more in that conversation, as is Nas.
Yep.
You know, if LL drops this anticipated collaborative album with Q-Tip whenever that's coming out, then I think that will definitely cement it. But you know, I don't know if the later LL stuff necessarily holds the same place as you know, Jay's catalog.
No, but I think Busta Rhymes deserves a little bit of a nod here. Tip of the hat, right? From Leaders of the New School and Scenario all the way through.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a run, it's a heck of a career. But yeah, no, Jay's had an incredibly long career. What were you saying, Sean, about the length of the career, the mythology, the history, and all that? I thought I cut you off. Somebody cut you off.
No, I didn't think so, but yeah, I mean, to your point, yeah, he's definitely, had an interesting long arc, and yeah, you had mentioned that there's lots of different fans depending on when you got on and when you got off the J train. So, that's also something that makes him interesting to talk about.
Yep. So I brought some misconceptions to the table, and like I didn't try and put them in order, but I think my subconscious kind of did. And so the top, the place I have to start, because like Jay is a rise and grind icon, right? In that sense.
Before you start, define like what you mean by misconceptions.
A narrative that has taken shape that I think is false.
Okay.
A narrative about Jay that has taken shape over time that I think is patently false.
All right, let's hear it. I'm interested. I want to see what you got.
Number one, right? And this is like what I would fight for the hardest, which is when people say the most important thing about Jay-Z is he's an incredible businessman, right? Like he's a billionaire. It's amazing. He's a billionaire. That's great. But nothing Jay does in business will ever be as important as his art. Art is more important. I get it. I get it that it's important, and that his like kind of, from memorizing his lines on the block to the boardroom is great, and it's a successful story. But the way his art has impacted the world is more important. His art is more important. That's my first.
So yeah, go ahead, Kay.
Because what I'm thinking is, I would say musically, it's not impactful, as impactful. Like his art is impactful, but I look at it as like if you step outside of the music world, I think Jay-Z's blueprint is used mostly. Like if you look at a lot of like the one I'm thinking of, like a LeBron James, like the sports world, like LeBron James obviously got his blueprint from Jay-Z.
I think that's fair.
So I think Jay-Z's business influence is spread outside of the music world and has taken a huge impact in terms of how like this generation of athletes conduct themselves business-wise.
Yeah.
So I think actually there's a third component that trumps both of these things that you guys are both kind of touching on. I think that there's Jay's music. I think there's Jay's business acumen. But I think that the most important component to Jay, and the thing that's at the top of the mountain for him, is Jay-Z's branding. And Jay-Z, this kind of encapsulates both of the things that you discussed. I think that Jay does make great art, and I think that Jay has also done some really smart and shrewd and very fruitful business moves. But I think that we've been talking about misconceptions about Jay-Z, and this is all about the mythology of his career. This is not a mythology that was implemented onto him by an outside force. Jay has been like he's been creating the myth about himself from the jump. And I think that that is truly the most impactful thing, because it sort of ties into the other two components that we're talking about. He's got the art to back it up. He's been able to do things outside of the scope of just music, so that he doesn't get, relegated to, just, oh, he's an artist, but I think throughout it all, he's been very smart about maintaining and protecting his brand, which I don't know how we're segueing here, but that leads me to my misconception that I wanted to start with.
Let's do it.
Which is the misconception that Reasonable Doubt was a heralded classic when it dropped. And
when it dropped, okay.
And listen, Reasonable Doubt is not a bad album. Reasonable Doubt is a great album. But Reasonable Doubt was not held as one of the classics when it debuted in 1996. And I think that this is, again, really, you know, a testament to Jay's self-mythologizing, we'll say his branding is just that he was able to sort of impact it onto everybody. Like, classic, should have went triple. You know, the first album, like, you know, MC's arguing about who's the greatest, you know, Big J or Nas. Like, he very much hammered in these points to a point that I think, like, again, I'm not saying that he's not worthy of the praise, but that he definitely played a smart hand in, you know, putting himself in the echelon in the conversation.
The branding kind of felt like propaganda at a point, right? Where it was like when I would talk to people, and they'd be like, "Jay-Z's the best rapper of all time." We're just telling me his lyrics, telling everybody that he was the best, and I was like, "This isn't an objective argument. You're just giving me what he told you." And you're right, because when he puts out Reasonable Doubt in 96, 95 is like an incredible year, right? It's you know, Only Built for Cuban Links, and you know, lots of, you know, I think what, Black Moon, and just everything, right? Dropping in 95.
Right.
And so growing up in 96, we thought it was cool, but we weren't checking for that, right? Like, Pac was going like 6 times platinum, you know, calling people names directly. And we just weren't that excited about Reasonable Doubt.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, think about, I mean, 96 was one of the loaded years that we've ever had. I mean, in hip hop, and Outkast at Let, AT was released, Tribe Called Quest was released, NWA Greatest Hits, De La Soul, Stakes is High. So you had all of these different hip hop avenues, and all of them are excellent in their own regards.
Yep.
So
yeah, I had this on my list of misconceptions. I had it titled "An Icon from the Start," and you know, I said Illmatic was a tidal wave in hip hop, but Reasonable Doubt wasn't. And I think that's not a knock on Jay. The frustrating part is that's what's so cool about Jay, is that he had to struggle to find his footing amongst all these super important people, and then did. And that's, a lot of artists never get to do.
Right.
So, Kay, do you have any misconceptions to put on the board?
no, I mean, I think those two really tie together. I think particularly the branding. Like, I think Jay-Z did from the gate. He had a business perception or perspective regarding his art and his persona that he wanted to create. And I think he adapted. Like, I think he started and he adapted it and tweaked it and changed it as he moved forward.
Right. Yeah. No, and my next one is and it goes along with what we were talking about, that Reasonable Doubt kind of getting overblown. The opposite side of this, the myth is that his legacy is his classics, right? The truth is, for me, non-classic Jay is way more interesting and important to learn from. I told you about this, Kay, years ago. Years ago, I decided Jay-Z is important enough as an artist all time. I need to buy his bad albums and study them. Like, if you really think someone's one of the best of all time, you should get what you think is their weakest links and study them and try and learn from them. And I did it. It was incredible. It was incredible to hear these things, because Jay, you remember Jay saying on the song, "I will not lose," and he does not, but he fails. He fails all the time. And listening to him fail is incredible, because he finds a way not to lose even when he fails. Like, give you an example. He regrets. He's always said he regrets decisions he made on Volume 1, S. Carter Volume 1. He always says that's very close to one of his best albums. He just bought in a little bit on what was going on at the time. And I was re-listening to S. Carter Volume 1, and boy, after 1,000,001 Questions, which is the intro, which is amazing, one of my favorites, the next two songs are awful. Awful. I Know What Girls Like is terrible. I never want to hear it again. It's all those songs are missteps. They're Jiggy era like nods, you know. And yeah, he messed that up. And
it's good to make those mistakes early on. You know, that I think that also is sort of to his benefit that he was able to make those missteps relatively early in his career and, you know, sort of sidestep away from them. Because yeah, like he did it, but honestly, a lot of people did that around that time. That, you know, there were a few artists who didn't sort of curb their artistic you know, tendencies towards what was the prevailing sound at the time, the bad boy sound, the, you know, super jiggy era sound. So yeah, I mean, to your point, it's also it's not about like failing, it's about how do you respond to the failure. And for him, it's like kind of recovered quite well, pretty seamlessly from that. He didn't really serve to be much of a blemish on his career. Which again probably is also attributed to the fact that he's really good at branding. So, you know, when companies and brands, you know, make a misstep or they do something wrong, they're really good at sweeping that under the rug and continuing to push forward with what they want you to focus on.
So why would you consider it to be a failure?
I was going to ask you, Kay, like, when's the last Jay-Z album that you knew was messy, but you loved listening to it anyway?
You know, I recently went back to Magna Carta. Is it Magna Carta Holy Grail?
Ooh, I love Magna Carta Holy
Grail. When I first initially heard it, I think it came out maybe 2012, 2013. Like there were some like solid songs, but I was like, this is a little bit too messy for me. And I didn't go back to it for, I mean, it's been about nine years now, 10 years. I saw a couple of weeks ago, I listened to it in whole for the first time in like almost a decade. And it's like, I was a little bit harder on this album than I thought I should have been. And I mean, I thought it was, you know, when I first heard it, I thought he was trying too hard. But then as I gave it time and let it breathe, I was like, okay, like, this album's all right. This album's pretty solid.
Yeah, no, the thing about Magna Carta that makes it so special and interesting to listen to, and I would endorse people to listen to it from this perspective. It is the last time Jay-Z made an album with punk ass energy, just like annoying, making fun of you energy, like Tom Ford and shit like that. Like
Picasso, baby, yeah.
Yeah, he's just like trying to frustrate you with how rich he is. He's trying to annoy you. You know, like you don't get that anymore. 444 Jay-Z is like, let me calmly walk you through this business deal. You know, and I love that. I love the punk ass energy of Magna Carta. I love it. I love how messy Blueprint 3 is. That it's like everything from his iPod just exploded into that.
The album cover almost looks like a representation of that. Like it's got the all white, sort of like the iPod branding, and yeah, it's all this stuff coming out of it. I never thought of it that way, but that's what that made me think of.
Sean, do you have a Jay album that was especially messy, but you come back to it and it's interesting to you? And do you have any of those?
I mean, no, I would say that I don't. I think that for me, there's Jay that I like, and there's Jay that I don't like, and there's Jay that I really don't like. And I only go back to the Jay that I like. So yeah, I don't necessarily, my relationship with him as a listener to his music doesn't require me to revisit and try to salvage from what I think didn't meet my expectations. I'm just like, this is what I like. And, you know, there's chapters in this book that I might skip or, you know, recommend that people just kind of skim through, you know.
Yep.
I'm not like perusing through the R. Kelly collaboration albums to like, you know, try to find the salvageable moments in there. That's just like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a completist when it comes to my listening relationship with Jay.
That's fair. But yeah, Jay is someone who has consistently experimented, right? Done weird stuff. And so, like, I think you can gain more from listening to, like, how weird Kingdom Come is than listening to Blueprint for the 800th time. You know,
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So, yeah. Do you have any other misconceptions, Sean, or do you want to?
No, I think you should take the wheel on this. I feel like you've got a good solid list here.
I'm ready. So, oh man, this next one is really close to my heart, and I have to warn. There is a conspiracy theorist in me, right? So, I will say I followed this story when it happened, and I have a lot of thoughts on it. There is a narrative that took shape that Jay-Z was mean to Dame Dash, which I think is a myth. And I think it is because Dame Dash did a lot of interviews about this and expressed his side of the story in detail. And Jay did not.
I only gave him a couple throwaway lines and, half a bar.
Make a new Jay. Yeah, that kind of thing. But, like, in reality, let's paint the picture before Jay shuffles Dame out, right? The picture is this. Jay-Z's announced his retirement for Black Album. He's going to go, right? He means it this time, you know? He said he's going to retire after every album. This time it's really happening. There's a documentary about it. We're doing it, right?
Except it didn't really happen. But
it didn't really happen.
Imagine if it did, though.
At the time, people kind of thought it was, right? And Dame had Kanye on deck. Kanye was his guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He also had Dipset locked in at the height of their powers, right? With Just Blaze and Bink and everybody in the fold. So, and State Property. So, Dame was loaded and thinking, go ahead and retire. We got the next generation, right? And what he didn't know was that Jay-Z was, was making deals with the people that he was yelling at to take over. Now, Dame has said, hey, why are you getting cuddly with the people I'm yelling at? Which I think is a logical fallacy in the sense of, you want me to just yell at everybody you yell at? Because I don't think I can keep that up. So they were in a chess game with each other at that point. Jay-Z won the chess game, but no one was mean to anybody. That's just, it was what it was.
I agree. I mean, I what's the quote? Power is rarely given; it's got to be taken. And so I think Jay-Z he's always been strategic. So he knew he's had a plan for his career, and he's had things business wise that he's had goals business wise that he's wanted to achieve, and so he did the things that he needed to do to complete his goals.
I hear you. No, yeah. Does this make any sense to you, Sean? Are you ambivalent?
No, it totally makes sense. I don't think that you can really be mean when it comes to business, unfortunately, which is why it's an inherent risk of doing business with your friends and people that there's emotional connection to. Jay-Z's a billionaire. A billionaire exists in a capitalistic society. Capitalism only works when people win. People can't win unless other people lose. These are like really, like larger, broader strokes here. I think that it's unfortunate to watch these concepts play out amongst two men who obviously came up together and had a closer bond. But I remember there's a popular meme or a video. It's like backstage at some concert, and it's like Dame and like everybody else is just like totally wilding out and like screaming, and like the camera pans over to Jay, and Jay just looks like he is over it. He is over it. And you know, that's a truth too, that the people that you come into something with, you know, life is about growth, relationships change, people change, and it's not always going to be realistic to think that everybody's going to continue on the same path and the same trajectory. So, you know, I think it just is what it is. But yeah, I would agree. I don't think that he was mean, you know. Maybe there could have been better communication, but this is me speaking on things that I don't truly have an inside track about it. Only they really know how it went down. So
And I mean, there's definitely an element of that. I'm glad you mentioned it. I would say there's also a sense that Jay's on a mission, right? And by the time this happens, Dame has already watched Jay step away from Fox, right? And just be like, whatever, do your thing. Like, if you're not on the same path Jay's moving to the next, you know, like he's not worried about it.
Jay doesn't have any liability. He doesn't have any liabilities around him. I mean, and that's by design,
right? And that's why when the judge asked, like, Jay, will you be responsible for Beanie Siegel? He said no.
Mm-hmm. And Beanie understood too. Like I saw an interview where Beanie was like, "Yeah, I mean, I get it."
Yep.
And so I mean, I think, you know, when you want autonomy and you want power, you've got to be able to. You have to have true power. You can't be held. What's the word? You can't have any strings attached to you. You know what I mean? So I think Jay went about, you know, after he retired. When did Black Album come out? Like maybe
2003. Yeah, 2003.
Yeah. So 2004, 2005. He went about gaining autonomy and gaining control over his brand and his career and his music as well.
Yep. Yeah. He wanted to grow as a business person and didn't feel like he could do it if he was just the talent, you know. I think that's fair. This next one is it's gonna get interesting here because there is a subset of people who are like, Jay deserves more credit, right? He deserves more credit for what he's done, right? People are always taking undue shots, right? When he does like songs like Keys, Keys, Keys or whatever, you know? The problem with that is that it's hard for me to say he deserves more credit when part of his talent is his eye for talent, right? Young Guru's one of the best mixing engineers ever, right? Like, he gathered a team that was like the best at what they did, right? That stable of producers is pretty incredible that they had during that like Rock La Familia time frame. Yeah.
Who is saying that Jay-Z doesn't get enough credit? Who's saying this?
There are definitely people out there who are like, and I've talked to because I will, you know, I was thinking about the difference between like, you know, Reasonable Doubt and Operation Doomsday, right? Like Operation Doomsday, MF Doom is producing this himself. He's rapping himself. He's dropped from the label. He's just kind of doing this himself. And it's beautiful. Jay had an elite team with him at all times. So you have to give that team credit. You can't give him all the credit. He can't be doing everything, you know. I call this would be Sean. This would be the Tom Brady misconception, right? My old joke about the Patriots was that Patriots fans watch the game and go, Tom Brady made such a good catch from Tom Brady, you know, like, oh, Tom Brady did such a good job blocking for Tom Brady. Like, there's Tom Brady's all over the field. And I think that's how some Jay-Z fans became at a certain point.
I mean that's a fair point, but I mean I do think that there is something. There's a reason why Tom Brady can get on the phone and convince Julio Jones to sign with the Buccaneers, or convince Gronkowski to come out of retirement,
Right.
or even rein in Antonio Brown for a couple of games, half a
Right.
season. And I think that Jay has that. He has that ability in the way that his rival, I guess, his main rival now would be Nas.
Right. Right.
So he has a way to wrangle talent and shape talent in a way that his rival Nas didn't.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean Jay's a star, and stars exist within a constellation of many other pieces and components to the picture, and Jay is exceptionally good at doing that and aligning himself with the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, Kay, from to put it out there, every time Jay and Nas do a song together, post their beef, it definitely feels like war. Like from Black Republicans to Success, it feels like they're just Nas wants to murder him.
Yeah, I mean they found like a peaceful coexistence, but when things are said, people don't forget things that are said. That's always going to be lingering in the background.
Yeah. And they know that like very few people are in the class that they're in, right?
Sure.
So they're like, yeah, they're ready for that when that happens. It's interesting. So yeah. The next one, I have to call myself out. I was saying this shit, and Jay recently responded to this. Like on the Pusha T guest verse, right? He said, if Big had lived, y'all would have gotten the commission. Right? And it was aimed at this myth that Jay only got as big as he got because, there was like the loss of Biggie and the loss of Pac and just the death of these kind of kingdoms, right? And it allowed for his come up. I was singing this song a lot back in the day, and I think the opposite is probably true now that I'm looking at it from a fair aspect. Just to say, we already talked about Reasonable Doubt comes out. The market is flooded. Jay's not a big deal at the time, right? If Jay dropped Reasonable Doubt in 92 or 93, right? It probably does better. It probably has a bigger audience. Right?
Yeah. It's difficult. It's all conjecture because we don't really know what would have happened. There's also a lot of speculation, and I feel like this was always sort of obvious, but maybe now it's less controversial to say now that we're like 25 years removed from it. But like Big, maybe Notorious B.I.G. would not have been held in such high regard had he lived to have a wider output, which might have had work that didn't necessarily match the quality of the albums that came before. So it's difficult to say, but I guess the reason why it's something that comes up so often is that, yes, obviously Big dying cleared space in the New York infrastructure, in the landscape for somebody to sort of maybe have more of that ascent. And that's why we started having these conversations about who is the real king of New York after Big. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I don't think it's impossible to say. It's all opinion based. There's no way that anybody could really say how it would have turned out. I do think that Jay benefited from the fact that, yes, there was now, sort of all eyes were on who's going to sort of assume the throne. But also, I don't think that it's fair to somebody who's obviously done very well. And like, he's far surpassed that moment in time. It just feels disingenuous for people to say, yeah, well, you wouldn't have made your 10th smash album if Big was still here. It's like, that's kind of, it's hard to get behind that. So yeah, I get that.
That seems petty right on the face of it, I would, but and yet, what my case here is that from 1996 to 2000 is an incredibly difficult time to be very successful in the pop rap sphere.
Yeah.
Because when and I remember being very concerned when Pac and Biggie died because there was a backlash against rap and the violence in rap, right? There was a backlash against a lot of the most popular stuff after those two pass is like Shania Twain. It's just people were like, get me away from this violence.
Right.
And it was a hard time for rap. And the fact that Jay was able to formulate his narratives, even Money Cash Hoes of like, New York ain't been the same since Snoop kicked down the buildings. Like he was able to take that and reshape it and make it work. And those were difficult times. Difficult times. Even when New York struggled as a whole, Jay did not. Like, you have to give him credit on that.
No, I mean, because I think Jay had, well, two things. One, I mean, the same argument could be made for Puff Daddy, and I'm sure it is. But I think Jay had pop sensibilities that Biggie didn't have.
Interesting.
Necessary. Like I mean, yes, I know Biggie did Juicy, but I think of a song like the song that really broke Jay-Z was in my opinion, the first Jay-Z song I heard was obviously Hard Knock Life.
Yeah.
And do I think that Biggie could do a song like Hard Knock Life? I don't think so.
I think the counter argument to that, Kay, is the song Hypnotize. If you listen to Hypnotize, not only catchy as hell, but if you check the patterns going on in that, it's very high level, right? It's very high level work, but it's catchy as fuck. I think Biggie could have done it, but the problem is Biggie didn't want to do it the way Diddy wanted to do it. I really believe. So I think there would have been a divide there. But
I mean, do you think Biggie would have, like, if Biggie was still alive, would he have just continued down the path that that Puffy at the time, yes, Puffy was traveling?
I think he would have broken away from Puffy. I also think there's a little bit of a weird Kurt Cobain divide with Biggie that you hit on a little bit. Kurt Cobain was great at catchy music, but hated that he was great at catchy music. And I think that is a little bit with Biggie. Biggie would have rather gone hard and done grotesque stuff. Like if the Flatbush Zombies, who do a lot of like scary ass New York shit, Michi Darko said like Biggie's his biggest influence because Biggie used to say the most horrifying shit.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong. Like that is an aspect of Biggie, but he would have had to live in both spaces. And I would have liked to see how that balance worked or if it ever took place. How do you feel about that, Sean? Is that tracking on? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I think that it's impossible to say. It's really all conjecture because we don't know what would have happened. But yeah, it certainly seemed like Big would have maybe tried to distance himself from the more commercial sound, but maybe he also would have totally leaned into it, and maybe he would have been able to do it just as great, or maybe because of the more higher profile background that he had compared to Jay, maybe he would have done it just as well as Jay did it, but people wouldn't have liked it as much coming from him because it would have been more of a sellout move. Like, oh, what is this guy doing? What is the guy who did Give Me the Loot, doing this shit over the Annie, sample? What the fuck is this? So yeah, it's hard to say, but it's that they are inextricably linked and intertwined in their stories, Jay and Big, and but I think that it's just sort of a fool's errand to try to play this like what if thing because it just simply it's not reality and there's no way to really prove it. They're both very talented, and there were obviously benefits that Jay had through his association with Big and through the space that was left after Big was murdered, but it's kind of like staring into a mirror like for too long. You just start to like hypnotize yourself trying to like see something, and it's you're not going to get it.
Yeah. No, and yeah, sometimes alternate history is a fun game you play, but
Right.
the reality of the matter, to your point, you cannot assume that Biggie would have done everything Jay did, like after, after Big passed. Like you
Yeah.
can't give him Jay's successes and say he would have done that. Like
Right.
that's not something you can assume. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So, yeah, we always and I've teased this last one, a little bit, which is like the rise and grind icon thing. The key linchpin in this is that dinner with Jay-Z would change your life.
Mm.
Uh, and no, it would not. Jay is on a mission to succeed, not to make you succeed. He will not stop his mission to help you. Not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be like Jay-Z, you should do what Jay-Z would do, and Jay-Z would probably take the money versus, at the stage in his career that he was at the point where like, oh, do I take this large sum or do I go to dinner with somebody who might impart these jewels of wisdom? My money is on the fact that Jay would probably take the money as he, progresses in his career and he expands his worldview and he's trying to connect with more people. Then I could see him, okay, well, like maybe there's more intrinsic value that I can get from just exchanging words and ideas and building a relationship with these people. But yeah, I mean, no, that was like the litmus test on Twitter for me to be like, do I respect you or do I respect you? Okay, if you're taking the dinner, then I hope you enjoy your meal. But I stand firmly on the take the money side of the debate.
Yeah, no, I think there's another part of this that's kind of annoying to me of like, so you sit with Jay, he gives you these pearls of wisdom, and all of a sudden you're like, you're killing it. You got your own business and it's making money. You're like, no, man, it's not the pithy, like gems of wisdom that make a business. It's a lot of it is work, right? It's work and decision making. And like, you're going to have to do that. Jay can't do that for you at dinner.
It's not magic powers. It's not like he's gonna like his like scent is gonna get on you, and then all of a sudden you will become Jay-Z. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
No, I mean I think Jay is, when you look at his career, like he is a big fan of collaboration in terms of working with. If we're thinking of Jay-Z as a brand, he's going to work with other brands that is going to help his brand expand. Whether it be like R. Kelly. I think it started with R. Kelly, the joint album with R. Kelly. Then he had the joint album with Linkin Park. Then he got married to Beyonce, which is probably his most fruitful collaboration of his life. Then he started
Watch the Throne as well.
Watch the Throne after that, and then his latest one with his wife, the Carters. So he is really about marketing. Like he's got a brand, or I think he went on tour with Justin Timberlake as well a couple of years ago, decades ago.
Yep.
So he's really about, he really views himself as a brand, as a business. I've got my brand, you've got your brand. Let's see how we can expand each other's markets.
Yeah, I mean, I remember an interview on one of these like kind of ebro-ish New York shows, right? And they were asking him like, "What?" Oh, he was talking about how there's a good bubbling underground scene. They were like, "Who are you listening to?" And Jay paused and he said, I can't say their names until they get to where they need to be." Like he was so conscious of like the effect his shout out would have on their natural progression that he was like, no, I'm going to wait until they get there and then I do the song.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hate that, but sure.
I hear you. I'm with you. I was like, wow, okay. But like, yeah, that guy's not going to like save your financial life at dinner. He's not going to do that.
No.
Do not take the dinner. No.
You wouldn't even shout out Saigon. You know, what are you going to do? So yeah, that's where I'm at. Sean, you have anything else to put on the board? I think I've had a good time.
I have nothing else to put on the board, but I do have my pick for my action item in terms of what I would want to remove. Are we segging into that now?
Let's do that. Yeah.
So I think that if we're talking about like a component of Jay's storyline that we would maybe remove from history, if we could erase it, it's kind of a tie. We've already addressed some of these things, but I would definitely remove the Linkin Park and R. Kelly collaboration albums. These are things that make sense from, again, that branding business perspective of like, oh, well, I'm a very popular rapper, so therefore it just makes sense in terms of like numbers that I should collaborate with the most popular R&B singer right now, or I should pair up with this popular rock band. These are great like boardroom decisions. The just musical output was not good. So those are the things that I would remove. Those are to me blemishes. They're such blemishes that the biggest Jay stans don't exalt these projects. They just pretend that they don't exist. And then if you're like really a Jay hater, if you have like that sort of salt in the wound perspective, you're bringing those things up. Like, how could he be the greatest? Look at the shit that he's put out. So yeah, I think that he would definitely benefit if we're making Illmatic to Jay's career. I would definitely trim that from his top 10 moments.
Okay, and I know that R. Kelly is the one people want to trim the most, but I would tell you, I remember getting like, because I getting in cars with white dudes with tight t-shirts on, and they would be like, I listen to rap music, see, press play, Linkin Park, Jay-Z, and I was like, Jay, what did you do to me?
I mean, because it takes away. Because I mean, how do I say this? I mean, it takes away it kind of chips away at Jay-Z's artistic integrity.
Yep.
In a way, like I look at the most popular rapper now, Drake, and Drake has given up all pretenses of artistry. He's out there looking to make a product, and he sell that product. And he's very naked about his ambition. And I think that those two projects was Jay like, look, I'm not trying to be the best rapper anymore. I already told y'all that I'm the best rapper. I'm out here trying to move product. I shouldn't say move product in that way. I'm out here trying to create product and expand my brand and make more money, generate more money, period.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, and it's a great pick, Sean. It's a great pick. I remain solidly in like the I don't write my own rhymes camp of that's what I want to remove. It's like, if you're a boxing fan, you know this. When Mayweather really became like the biggest deal, so many fighters got knocked out trying to replicate his defensive style. They were like, I'm going to roll my head. And they got knocked out because they weren't Mayweather. That's what happened with the I don't write my own rhymes thing. We got a bunch of terrible albums with people who are like, I never write a rhyme. We're like, I know, dude. I know.
We can tell. Yeah, that wasn't a great influence, I would say. That's probably a overall greater loss to the craft. Not everybody, it should have been like, don't try this at home, kids. Like, I don't write my rhymes, but I encourage everybody to stick to those pads and pens or the sidekicks or whatever was being used to write rhymes at the time. It definitely it wasn't the healthiest influence.
Yeah, because the way they interpreted it was, I don't even need to try, man. and it was just like ad libs. They just were doing ad libs basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to take off the board?
I mean, I would probably take away like maybe his attitude towards women from the early
Ooh, the early joints.
But but then again, I think, you know, what makes Jay-Z such a compelling character, and I use it in terms of like I do think there's a difference between Sean Carter, the man, and then Jay-Z, the rapper, the character. I think what makes him such a compelling character is seeing how he's evolved, you know, through the decades.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I guess we wouldn't, like, you know, a song like Smile wouldn't hit as hard if we didn't have like a Big Pimpin' Jay-Z.
Right.
But nonetheless, I still think he looks back at it and like, I'm sure he said some things where like, you know, like, I probably shouldn't have, I'm better than that rap or that specific lyric or attitude.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, there was a lot of that on Volume 1 when I was re-listening to it. My bitches, and just like really being in the mode. Yeah.
And I mean, Jay-Z is he's a thoughtful guy. And you can tell that, you know, he was playing, you know, that particular aspect up. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the only thing that I would kind of look at with a weary eye.
Sean, Jay-Z never, to my knowledge, had a having sex with a lady skit. Am I right? Is that correct?
You know, I think Jay was always a little too cool for that. I think that just as Jay doesn't want to name drop rappers that he's listening to on morning talk show interviews, I don't think Jay wants to. Like, Jay will tell you that he's had sex, but Jay would never want you to even like have an inkling of how he has sex. You know, like he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to put the camera or the microphone in there. He's way too private. So no, I don't think that he's done that. Which, quite honestly, I think he should be commended for. As we talked about on the Big Pun Capital Punishment episode of the Making Illmatic podcast, Big Pun had a skit on his album that is absolutely that, and it's not anything that we really needed to hear then, and it's certainly not anything that we want to hear now.
I mean, the Big Pun one is really one for the ages because it's a story. Like, it's a story. It's that he has sex with. All
right. Settle down. Yeah,
and they get together, and he unifies them. It's an incredible journey. But
no, I'm good. I'm
with you. Yes, you cut it, and I agree with the cut. I'm not protective of it, I promise. but no, there were lots of sex skits. Like Busta Rhymes, The Coming has a sex skit. The Chronic has
Ready to Die,
dumb sex skit. Well, yeah. So he never did a regrettable sex skit. Shout out to him on that.
Regrettable sexism and misogyny, but no skits immortalizing them. So yeah,
right. No skits immortalizing them. That trend, I don't think it's coming back. I'm going to go ahead and call that. I think that we're forking that one.
I mean, it just seems quaint at this point when, you know, everybody has OnlyFans and sex tapes and things like that. Like, you know, sex skits just seems totally tame by comparison. So
it's not shocking anymore.
Nope, not at all. No. Not at all. So yeah, I think that's it. Great picks all, and I would say transitioning to the recommendation corner real quick, just to shout out some projects. Okay. Open Mike Eagle is coming out with a new album. It's got an impossible name. It's like a tape called Component System with analog. Like, it doesn't even fit on the top of the Bandcamp list. It's ridiculous. But it's a tape called Component System with the auto reverse. That's the name of the album. But the first single is produced by Diamond D, legend, and it's called I'll Fight You. And I have not been able to get it out of it's beautiful. Beautiful song. I think this comes out October 7th. So of Mike Eagle have as my 29th favorite MC of all time. So
Wow,
I am,
specificity.
yeah, I've got a running list, like 116 long at this point.
All right, so that's pretty high then. Yeah, shout out to Mike Eagle, obviously a friend of mine, and shout out to the Stony Island Audio crew. Definitely honored to be a part of we're the new No Limit soldiers. We're coming down. We're going to take over the rap industry. But yeah, I did enjoy that the Diamond D joint that he just dropped.
It should be a record label. It should be also a record label. You should just go for it.
I'll talk to Mike. I'll talk to Mike, see what he says.
Stony Island. And so Seb Bash and Ty Ferris have an album coming out in a few days, 2 days, called Fluorescent Mud. Ty Ferris is Detroit. He's an incredible rapper. Seb Bash. Do you remember Seb Bash?
Sounds familiar.
He did a bunch of the beats on I Told Bessie.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Now I do. Yes.
A bunch of the most interesting ones. So I'm really excited for Ty Ferris to spit over some weird beats. I hope he gets to. I hope he does that. That'll be fun. The other one I would say Up Against the Wall, semicolon, a degree of insanity. I believe that. It's by Young Morpheus and Theravada. My review on that is going up tomorrow. So it's already up if you're seeing this. So fun to listen to, fun to review. Young Morpheus is from LA. Theravada is New York through and through. So it was kind of awesome to have, these influences meet and make this beautiful little project. It's just really cool. Yep. Sean, you listen to anything? You bumping anything?
What am I bumping right now? I always just pull out my my phone here to see what's on there. I'm really into the latest album by Pro. He is an MC from Memphis. He's part of the Unapologetic group there. It's Pro, Preauxx. It's probably a few months old, but he dropped like 2 albums in recently. And the latest one is called God You're Beautiful. He dropped it back in May. It's very melodic. It's got really cool sort of like experimental sound, and he's somebody that I definitely think more people should be aware of. And then I also really like Lupe Fiasco's last album, the Drill Music in Zion. I know that that's like super new right now, but it's and I'll say, like, I'm not the biggest Lupe Fiasco fan. That he's not somebody that like I instantly stan or anything, but it's a pretty special album. I really enjoy that. So those are the 2 things that have been sort of staying in rotation for me.
I'm with you. We covered the Lupe with Rich Jones from Chicago. That was awesome. Great conversation.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I'm into it, and it's an album that kind of keeps moving up my list because some of the Lupe stuff has been so conceptually weighty that it's like not fun to re-listen to a lot. This one is really fun to re-listen to. It's really loose.
Yeah, there's still a lot of depth, but it's a little bit easier to digest. So I think that it like strikes a good balance of what works for him and what people appreciate about him.
Totally agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you listen to? Body Rage?
I mean, last weekend I listened to the whole Drillmatic by Game album, so I'm a little bit exhausted after that. But yeah, a little bit under 2 hours. Listen to all 30 tracks. So
that's incredible. Did it ruin your day? Was it like, ugh? Are you okay?
No, but I mean, I would be interested if you did like a Making an Illmatic of that. Sean, have you heard it?
No, I haven't, and I probably won't. But that's shout out to him, shout out to you for listening to that. I don't have time to listen to 30 tracks. I just don't. I wouldn't listen to 30 tracks from my favorite MC, let alone game.
Fair.
So yeah,
And
I mean,
one of those songs is 10 minutes, and it's a
and
distant.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. More power
Yeah.
to him.
Yeah, no, he's into it. It's yeah, I was saying I think the last Game album that was really Game and really represented what was best for his art was 1992.
Mm.
Is a concept album about the riots in 92. And it was really good. It was really good.
I got to go back and check that for sure.
Yeah, I
then.
do too.
Yeah, no, it was really awesome. And like he just at this point he like doing it seems like PR stuff. It seems like ways
Yeah.
to stay in the spotlight. It's not what he wants to do artistically anymore. It doesn't feel like, but whatever. Like the whole 10-minute diss song to M feels like a PR stunt to get a versus. You know? And
Right.
I'm not feeling it.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
No, you're not. You don't have that. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate everybody. Thank you, Sean, for coming on here.
Absolutely.
I love Stony Island Audio. Yeah, I love what you do over there. Yeah, keep hosting it up. Everybody watch Prey, the new Predator movie.